The MCG is an icon of Melbourne. It is the centre of Melbourne's sport and entertainment precinct and was recently voted one of the 7 wonders of the sporting world. To track its nearly 160-year history, the MCG is home to its very own sporting museum. A great part of this museum is the daily guided tours it runs of the G.
Look at the reciprocal rights that the Melbourne Cricket Club and Ground have overseas. The other grounds such as Lord's and Hong Kong and Singapore, those great grounds, none of them have hosted an Olympic Games or Commonwealth Games. So I'd say that the Melbourne Cricket Ground is unique, given that it's also been a ground to have the Rolling Stones, Madonna, Billy Joel, Elton John, concerts here as well. It's heritage listed and it's certainly an icon in Melbourne and of course Australia.
The ground is special in the memories it creates, from the dizzying heights of a triumph to the bitter taste of defeat. It is the kind of place you always remember your first visit to. Mine was as a 7-year-old and my dad took me. I'll never forget walking up the steps towards the ground and being completely taken aback by it. My dad can still clearly remember his first trip, even after the hundreds of visits he's made to the G.
Yes, the first time I went to the MCG was for the VFL Grand Final in 1965 between St Kilda and Essendon. Then a fair amount of the attendance was standing room only, and the tickets that we had in '65 were standing room only, and you had to get to the ground at about 9:30 in the morning and watch the under-19s grand final or reserves grand final before you saw the main grand final, because if you didn't get there early, you'd be standing way up the back and you wouldn't see much. So we got there at 9:30 and stood there all day.
It is also a place dear in the hearts of athletes both past and present who were fortunate enough to step out onto the hallowed turf of the G.
Yeah, I think the G is definitely my favourite ground, and it's probably a different feeling playing there than anywhere else. Probably also because it is Collingwood's home ground, so all our fans are there and they pack the place out. So sort of always guaranteed there's going to be a minimum of 50,000, and most games is sort of upward of 80,000. So just because everyone loves playing there and because of, I guess, the history of the ground, just makes it so much special, so much more special to play there.
Wes Hall, the famous West Indian cricketer, I do remember taking him out into the middle of the ground when he was out for an anniversary of the Tide Test, and while I was talking to him, the sprinklers went off in the middle of the ground, and Wes was suited, of course, and he still didn't want to move off the ground. He was quite happy to stand there and get wet. Yeah, a lot of great cricketers. Even Richie Richardson, years after he retired, he was playing that beach cricket up along the eastern coast of Australia, and when he came to the ground, the one thing he wanted to do was go out onto the ground. And while he was there, he rang his son in the West Indies and said, "Guess where I am now?"
For almost 20 years now, one of the biggest days on the G schedule, and one of my personal favourite events to attend, is the Anzac Day football match between Collingwood and Essendon.
Yeah, Anzac Day is amazing. And it's something that I speak to people who aren't Collingwood supporters and aren't Essendon supporters, and people who are footy fans but don't really go to football. And I said it's something you have to do, and I guess I'm fortunate enough to be able to experience it and be out there, but just what the day actually means to all Australians, and what obviously the Anzacs fought for so that we've got what we have today. So you just don't understand that 16, 17 and 18-year-olds who went and fought and lost their lives and lost their mates and lost their family. Right now we're in a position where us being general public, we don't have to go through that. So just the meaningfulness of the actual day itself, the fact that we also get to go out there and play footy with our mates, it's pretty special.
It was a thriving camp here during the war. We still have people here coming in, not many, but a few, that were stationed here during World War II. So you had up to 16,000 US Marines and 200,000 Royal Australian Air Force men stationed here during World War II, and that brings a lot of emotion to a lot of people still coming to visit. The recent movie they made in the Pacific, Steven Spielberg made, there was a few Marines that are still going in their late 80s, early 90s. When they were in Melbourne making that movie, all they wanted to do was come back to the MCG where they'd been stationed.
From spectators all over the world to the sportsmen who leave their blood and sweat on the turf week in and week out, the MCG is a place that has the power to bring total strangers together and create unforgettable memories.